Hello, lovelies. Today we're gonna dive deeper with a dear friend, amazing teacher and creatress, Luna Agneya. So, Luna, let me introduce you to her. She is sensuality and relating expert. She's teaching, coaching, and creating amazing events in the field of sensuality, helping people to really liberate eros and find deeper connection for themselves through this work, through shadow work, through kink, through tantra. She's been studying with Leila Martin in the Vita Integrated Sex, Love, and Relationship coaching training. She's a tantric yogini, an event manager and designer, and she interweaves all of her yumminess into her offerings. She's also head mistress, which I love a lot, of the Sensual Art School, which is an online school that you should for sure check out. And I'm super excited to have you here, Luna. Welcome, 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 and dive with you into this topic.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, yes. I have this question that I'm asking everybody in the beginning to kick off this conversation in the Better Relation Summit, which is in our new age, in our times, we see more divorces than happily ever after cases in our surroundings. Many relationships that are only for a short moment, and it's very hard to sustain healthy and lasting relationships. What do you think is the reason why this is that way?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a multi-system thing. I mean, we have on one hand like a hyper individualist capitalist world where we're kind of conditioned to be really self-focused, to just focus on my needs, my wants, my future, my career. And it creates this way of being selfish. Like a lot of us have had to work through a lot of our deep selfishness to be able to come into relationship. And that's also tied to then our ego. And our ego wants to be right, and our ego wants to be special. Our ego wants to have like promises and fantasy romances and all these kind of things, and we're really attached to our egos. And real love and relationships a bit of an ego death. You have to like surrender a lot of what you think you want or what's best or what you think is right in order to come into like harmony and to honor another person's perspective and way of being. So like there's that whole struggle of like the ego battles, and why I incorporate so much spirituality in that, like in my work, because that's kind of part of that. And then besides that, there's obviously like relating trauma and just intergenerational issues with having really bad examples of relationships, of communication, and a lot of us having like deeply embedded avoidance or anxious styles. And like there's very few role models of really amazing relationships where people are both like best friends and also are sexy and having a lot of fun and romance, as well as having that like trust. And so then if we don't have role models and we don't see that as well in our media, we've got really bad portrayals of relationships a lot of the time, then that's going to also impact the stories and the meaning that we give relationships. So those are probably like some of the main factors. And then of course those branch out into a million other little details that just cause a lot of struggles for us.
I love how you're like bringing in this ego-centeredness that we haven't touched upon so much yet. Is like in nowadays where it's more like, okay, me first. And it's a little bit contradictory for those who've been watching all the videos, maybe, because we have people saying like, okay, you have to cultivate this love for yourself first, and there is like this first me and then everybody else, and you're saying like, okay, no, actually we have to let go of this selfishness. So can you speak a little bit more into how we can like find like the right path in this? Okay, I should love myself first, but then I should not be too selfish. So it's a little bit like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like a balancing act on a tightrope where, I think a lot of us, while we're, on our healing journeys, like there is a phase where we kind of do need to be selfish. We need to figure out who we are, what we want, what our values are, what it is that we need. And yeah, learning how to take care of yourself so that you don't get into enmeshment, codependent, like unhealthy patterns is also a really good thing. But then we go a little bit too far in that direction, and then we're trying to be in relationship with someone. It's like, oh no, but my need is for this and my need is for that, and like, oh, but like the house needs to look a certain way because that's how I'm happy. And then it's like, well, that person has a whole bunch of needs and desires and patterns and ways of being, and like they're not always going to be compatible. And, I posted about this recently and just saying like, yeah, part of me going into my wedding vows and stuff was like accepting the incompatibilities that my partner and I have, because we have a lot of compatibilities, but there are areas where like we just, like he's a lot more clean and neat than I am. And like I step a little bit his way, he steps a bit my way, but it's like both of us have to just like surrender a little bit to the fact that like this is a whole other person with our whole history and personality type, and we're not always going to be perfectly meeting each other. But then that doesn't mean it can't be a really beautiful, powerful, nourishing relationship. It means that like sometimes I got to not get what I want. And that sometimes is good for me. I'm like, getting what I want all the time is what's best for me. But actually it's not, because then I can just be cycling in my own patterns and not evolve and grow. Like sometimes going into that discomfort means that I have to actually shed some bad habits, like being super messy, because I don't care, but other people do. So I had to like make some shifts that I could have been stubborn about. But when I surrender into it because of love and because I want to live in harmony with another being that has different needs to me, then, I find like, oh, actually, I prefer living in a more tidy space. And actually, this has some benefits for me and has had positive change in my life because I've had to compromise and change a little bit, without, of course, then going so much that you totally just do whatever the other person says and lose yourself. So that's the balancing act where it's like, well, you need to sometimes, be like, no, this is a boundary and this is true for me. So it's not something that we can really give an easy answer to in this kind of thing. It's something we explore with, and we're going to go too far that way and we're going to go too far the other way. But then we try to meet in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, beautiful. I love how you say that sometimes the needs that my partner has are not my needs, but in the end I realize that they're actually good for me also. So like really opening up to this possibility that this can be good, while at the same time staying true to ourselves. Because I mean we both know that one of the things trauma comes up in the way of relating is this fawn response, where it's like always trying to please the other person. So it's like also, especially in that phase, to be very careful of, like, as you said, like not leaning too much into that, because we're losing ourselves, to really see how we can stay centered in ourselves while we are relating. Another thing that you mentioned in the first question or first answer that you gave to me was this, like, role models, and that they're not existent and that they have been changed so much. Can you speak more into like what are the role models that are out there and how are they affecting us in the way how we are relating?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of movie love stories and celebrity things that we see, a lot of the time you're seeing really a lot of possessiveness and like the normalization of some pretty intense types of jealousy or codependence. And also, yeah, this like love has to be like super intense and very dramatic, and it's loud, and it's like the person's on the edge of their seat, and will I get them, will I not? And then we believe that that kind of intense, anxious, dramatic kind of relationship is what real love is meant to be. I know I internalized that story, and it was actually a struggle when I was first with my partner, who's now my husband. But like when it was so like easy, and it just felt so like simple and natural to be with each other, and there was just this like sense that it was like breathing, and that this is just a person that I can just really soften into myself with and not have to perform to. And but then like there was this part in my mind of like, oh, but it's not dramatic, it's not so intense. Like my last relationship was really intense, and it was like a drug, and then this doesn't feel that way, so maybe it's not actually love, maybe I'm not meant to be with him. Maybe it's someone else is my soulmate or whatever, because this just feels too comfortable. And I then had to like learn to actually get comfortable with something that's just good for me. And I'm really looking and seeing like, I feel a lot happier. I'm a lot more myself. I feel a lot more confident and secure and loved and accepted fully for who I am. And then to really like, okay, and yeah, and that's good. I don't need to be in all this like drama all the time, and to feel this like really intense drug addiction craving to have a really good relationship. And that took time to get used to it, and I had to pull apart a lot of stories that I'd learned in culture and media and everything, to be able to get to that space.
Yeah, yeah. I share a similar experience, that I was very attached and very addicted to this trauma bonding, this drama, this intensity, this hot and cold and in and out, and all of that. Also, with the idea that relationship is the biggest space for personal growth, and growth has to be uncomfortable because it's outside of my comfort zone. So then I was like getting myself into like almost like running into the knife, right? And realizing that like, oh wow, actually it's about like really feeling my nervous system being safe with somebody and not being agitated all the time. However, as you said, for me also it was like a long process, or like still up until today sometimes I'm like, but actually it's boring. When is the next drama coming here? Yeah.
Yeah, and I really, I mean, even just on a biological level, there can be this like drug addiction that happens with a partner if we have a certain level of compatibility, and we're getting lots of oxytocin, and we're getting the dopamine hits, and it is a drug, and you have come down. So, when my ex and I would have some time apart, or if he would be having a phase where he wouldn't want to have sex, then I would start becoming like a addict, like, oh no, I'm getting withdrawals, what am I going to do? And it was just really frying my system. While in this relationship there's just like this beautiful balance, and we still have our waves. Of course, there's times where things are like very romantic and squishy, and other times where you're like, okay, yeah, like I don't know, I'm not feeling super turned on by you, and we're kind of frustrating and grinding against each other a little bit. But there's some waves, but then there's just not this sense that I have to grasp and hold on to anything. It's like, no, we're here for each other. We've got that stability.
Beautiful, and I think what you and your partner have created is very beautiful, and I would love to hear more about what is so special about the way how you're relating, and also now that you stepped into marriage, to give some ideas for the listeners how we can really design or redesign marriage and take this out of the dirt of the projection of the drama and trauma bonding into a new level as a role model.
Yeah. Yeah, so for starters, like I never planned on getting married. I didn't think I would be someone that would get married at all because I've always been a pretty diehard feminist. And for me, marriage was very linked to patriarchy and to ownership over women. Also, a lack of freedom. Like, if people that are into astrology, I'm very Aquarius and Gemini. I am very much like, I want my freedom. I want to be able to explore and travel and like have my independence. That's a very important part of like my essence as a being. So marriage just kind of sounded really counter to that. And I also used to work as a stripper. So I often had guys coming in just before they got married and they're like, oh, the old ball and chain. And like, there goes all my freedom. And like, oh no, now I'm getting married. My life is over. And I was confronted with that mentality a lot. And so I was like, yeah, why do people do this? But I found like with my partner now, like we've been trying to explore like what is this balance between safety and freedom. And I know a lot of people, especially that are in the open relating paradigm, like that's the game that we're exploring. Like what is it to have this sense of safety and a really beautiful nourishing container with someone that is really there for you. There's like this consistency and this nourishment that you get from being in relationship, but that it's not then cutting off a part of you or pushing away your freedom and limiting you, that it doesn't come at a cost, that you have to sacrifice an aspect of your being to then get that safety, which is what a lot of typical marriage is like. It's like, oh yeah, then you get the stability and you get the assurance, even though most people, half the people are getting divorced anyway, so you don't really have that assurance, but you have this illusion of safety that you have when you get married, with this promise that you're never going to love or have sex with anyone else ever again, which then a lot of the time doesn't happen anyway. But there's this there's this idea that it's one or the other, and we're like, no, I don't I don't believe in that. I think we can have both. And at our 2-year anniversary, it was around the time that I was still like really with this whole like, oh, it's not dramatic enough, it's it's too stable. And I was doing like a shadow work training, and I kind of realized like actually the reason I'm not like, I put it as drama and trauma, but then I was like, there's something here. It's not just drama and trauma. There's a level of like passionate romance and love that is what I'm craving, that I'm, now just saying, brushing it off is like, oh, that's my trauma patterns. But I'm like, actually under that, there's something. And I realized that we did have kind of one foot in, one foot out in the relationship. And then I was like, okay, like what is it that I need to be able to cultivate that passion and that like devotion and that longing of my romantic heart? And I realized, yeah, it was a level of commitment. It was a level of going all in, jumping both feet in, like really going in and being like, you're my person, I'm devoted to you. And so we did a hand fasting ceremony, which is kind of like a 1-year commitment. And we got hand fasted, and we said like for at least a year we're going to be with each other, and we're committing to that future that's not like the rest of my life, but it's kind of like a trial marriage in a way. And it really shifted things, and suddenly we just had so much more passion and like all these kind of things I was craving without the intensity of the drama, but just this sense of like, yeah, like I'm really committed to you, I'm showing up for you, we have a future together, I'm willing to go through any discomfort that comes up and not just run away as soon as things are uncomfortable. And to really just go all in with one person. And then that brought up like so much more freedom and so much more play and passion and beauty. So I started really seeing that like, yeah, there's something in commitment, there's something in really like saying full yes to someone. Especially I used to be very avoidant, and so I'd be always like playing casual and trying to and so like, yeah, to go all in and to really cultivate that commitment really changed things. And again, just now as we got married, then we felt like, wow, that was just so much energy within that devotional commitment that came up, that's brought so much more juiciness and play and passion to our relationship. So there's quite a lot of power in that when you're committing to the right person. So so we kind of went through a process of redefining what is marriage for us. If it doesn't mean ownership, it doesn't mean I'm never going to love anyone else, I'm never going to have sex with anyone else. Like, what is it to commit, to say full yes to someone, to really say, like, we're on this path together, and I'm going to really, in front of friends and family and everyone, say, like, yes, this is my family, this is my person, this is who I'm on this journey with. And we're like coming together and bringing our families together, and like celebrating the love that we have together. And it was a really beautiful process to go there together.
Yeah, very beautiful and very inspiring. Thank you for sharing how you're taking off this cultural and social conceptions and also woundings around ownership, as you said, the patriarchal wound, the loss of freedom, like all of this that are somehow collectively anchored traumas, in going into redefining what the sacred union mean for you, and even going to that point of like, okay, and for me, full commitment also means to open myself up to having intimacy with other people. As I hear you saying, is like, yes, I'm also committing fully to you, does not exclude this part, because this is important for me to keep a level of freedom, and while still being rooted in safety in your relationship, right? So I really love how you shifting that, and also like the healing that comes for yourself in your own trauma patterns through this commitment and this devotion that arises. As you said, you've been avoidant and like all of like entertaining multiple things, or very trauma bonded, and it's like being like, really, okay, now I'm gonna let go of that, and I break through my own patterns through this deep yes that I'm giving to you. Very powerful.
And I mean, it was beautiful as well that a lot of our guests at the wedding, especially other people that are navigating some form of open relating, non-monogamy, whatever, but also even just people that have been long-term monogamous but just never seen the point in marriage, they were sharing that after seeing our ceremony, they were also kind of like, oh, okay, like, yeah, maybe this can be something else. Maybe we can take back the ritual of marriage and what it means to devote ourselves and commit to someone. And, because we did the wedding totally different. It wasn't a traditional wedding at all, like a lot, because I'm a ritualist. I design rituals as part of my work. And so I really got excited of like, okay, yeah, we're not having like my parents drop me off to my man, and because that was part of the patriarchal, like, okay, we're giving you, we're selling you our daughter, whatever. Like, there you go.
It's true,
And so I was like, no, we're gonna have like everyone in a circle, and then both of our families are going to drop us off, and we're going to come together. And that's the symbolism of our two families uniting into this one circle of love and connection. And there was just lots of little things that we were doing throughout our wedding and the days before and stuff that were just really like meaningful of that. And also the fact that, like, because we work with love and intimacy and relationships, that our relationship is also a catalyst for our whole community and for our work in the world. So like, how do we let our love amplify out? So that was also like something that we really wanted to bring in, that it's like our relationship isn't even just about us two and our individual stuff, but it actually ripples out into the world, and we create more together than we could have separate, because he's also my business partner. And we teach together and facilitate together and stuff as well. So there was just a lot of symbology and meaning. And the wedding, I feel, was this whole 6-month journey since we got engaged and put together. It wasn't just this one day. It was like this whole process of what is commitment, what is devotion, what is love, what is, what does this mean to us? And it was a transformational process for us to go on that journey together.
Wow, beautiful. I love how you're shifting that, like really bringing the families together, the symbolism that is interwoven in that, and the collective healing that happens through putting a marriage together like that. As you said, it's a ripple effect. It's not, it already started to ripple with other people who are like, oh, wait, actually, this is what feels right for me, instead of being like, no, I don't want to marry because I don't want to tap into this religious and cultural indoctrinated idea of what marriage is, as you said, like this, oh my god, now I'm gonna lose my freedom, I have a chain, I'm married.
Yeah, the old ball and chain. It's like,
Exactly.
oh my god, I wouldn't want to be married to someone that's considering me their ball and chain. Like, what?
Exactly, like no, like really, like yeah, it's very very powerful to shift that and to step into being that role model that you mentioned is missing for you, that I totally agree in our society. It's like so powerful that you're like taking responsibility there and being like, yes, this is how we're gonna move it, and this is how we're gonna shift things on an individual level for you, but also as we were connecting to what we heard with Jessica Fern, this nested model, also on a partnership level, but then even bigger on a social level, on a cultural level, like really ripping out into all the layers. So yeah, very beautiful. Thank you for sharing that and for doing that work. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Beautiful. Is there anything else that you want to share when it comes to recipes for healthy and lasting relationships?
Hmm. Gosh, there's so much could say. Um, yeah, I mean, for us, it's really like there's so many facets of our relationship that all need their own nurturance and support. I mean, there's just like being good humans and friends to each other, and like what do we need to be really good friends, which is like transparency and communication and empathy and supporting each other and playing. Like play is so important in our relationship. Like, a lot of people probably online, are like, oh, you guys are intimidating, like you're these tantric couple, whatever, but we're like the biggest kids ever, and we play so hard and we get really silly, and I think that's such medicine and so needed, I think, in more relationships. And the more I got into studying somatics as well, I was learning about like the way that the brain heals and the way that we can heal like trauma and issues through play as well, and how it opens up our intellectual abilities and connects to our emotions. And yeah, so like being good friends and having a lot of play is super important. And I think also with the friendship comes this like letting go of if you're in a hetero relationship, especially like the ideas of male, female, whatever, and just meeting as like two human beings in that realm, just being good friends with each other. And then being lovers is another part of your relationship. And that's something that takes effort and cultivation, especially if you are monogamous or monogamish. But I really think for everyone, because I think if we have sexual issues with our partner and then we just go to open relating just for that rather than like working on that, then that's probably not going to end very well. Like we really made sure that before we went into a lot of open relating stuff, not that we do much, but there's a little bit, but we were like, we really want to make sure that we're not doing it out of a place of an empty cup and trying to fill that cup elsewhere. We want to make sure that we're feeling solid in our intimate relationship, and then it's just like an additional beautiful thing that we get to experience, and that we're not trying to like replace something that we're missing in our relationship. So we've had to really commit to organizing date nights. We study with an amazing couple that we're doing intimacy practices with and learning from. We have a relationship coach that we have seen on and off, and that helps us when we're specifically struggling with stuff. We still go to workshops and learn, sexy massage techniques. So we started learning tango, and like, yeah, being a good lover to your partner means putting in effort continuously for the rest of your relationship. It's not something that you just woo your partner. That's another thing that you hear, like, oh, after marriage, then the sex just becomes shit. And, you go enter into a sexless marriage and, all romance dies. Like, no, we're not going to accept that. That's not our destiny. Like, other people, if you want to get lazy with that, then fine. But we're like, no. And I made this really clear with my partner as well before committing more. I was like, I'm not going to accept that. Actually, I'm a very sexual being. I love my sexuality. It's a big part of who I am. And it's really important for me. And I don't want to be in a relationship where we just let that die and we get lazy. And I want, to know that if you're committing to this path with me, you're also committing that we put in effort with our sexuality and that we don't just, get lazy and let it fizzle away, because that's not going to work for me. And then these conversations can be challenging to the ego and can bring up a lot of things, and it's really uncomfortable. And like having this conversation, I was like, oh my God, if I say this, he's going to leave me. But I'm like, no, I need to be true to myself and I need to speak my truth. And of course it was uncomfortable, but it was really important. And I'm glad that I did speak that and say that, because we have really been showing up for that part of our relationship too. And then also the devotional aspect is like looking beyond just your individual relationship. Like, what are you bringing to the world? How can you overflow the love that you have into the world if you have been blessed enough? Like, a lot of people never find someone to be in love and relationship with. And I mean, we have a very clear purpose, mission, whatever, because, we work with sexuality and relating, and we teach together and we have a business together. But even if it's not that, and there's just something like you guys are really passionate about organic food and you want to create a little garden or work together on a project, or like, is there something that your relationship can be in service to and that you can offer your community or your friends? Maybe it's, fostering, maybe it's just parenting, and that's where you devote your energy to. But I think devotion is really important in all of our lives. And this, where you're not just constantly focused on each other and yourself, but you turn out and you focus on something else. And then your relationship is in service to something greater. So that was also part of our ritual for our wedding, was like, the connection for our individual selves and our individual needs and desires. And then there was like the container of the relationship and what this like beautiful lovership that we have is as its own entity. And then there's like, what are we in service to, and how is our relationship being about more than just us? And I think that like is a very liberating thing, to just let go of focusing on yourselves for some time and to focus on something else. And I've really seen that in a lot of really powerful long-term relationships, is they always have something they're in service to together. They have something that bonds them that's beyond just their desires and needs, and is something that they create together through their relationship. So I find that's a beautiful recipe piece as well.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all these golden nuggets from like really learning how to be best friends through communication and transparency and play like children, to cultivating the lovership and learning lovership skills and not fleeing into open relating because the love is not that way or the sex is not that way how we want that. I think this is something very important to speak out to for others to hear, because this can like the mere idea to open the relationship because the sex is not good can be traumatizing again, and continuing this loop of patterns of toxicity of everything. So like really, really good that you're speaking into that. And then also that like making it bigger than yourselves and connecting to the bigger picture. And for this also, as you said in the beginning, I think it's beautiful, we're a little bit like closing the circle here, of like looking away from this selfish way of seeing, letting the ego die, and bringing in a new level of awareness for, okay, what is beyond us, what is the ripple effect of this union that we can bring, and like what are we putting this into service. Is like very, very beautiful. Thank thank you for sharing all of that.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I know that you also have some free gift for couples out there to yeah. You want to share more about that?
I have a podcast called the Sensual Artistry Podcast, and I was running last year these sex and love satsangs, and there's like a whole bunch of episodes from that which are all stuff to do with relationships. So there's a heap of episodes on things like devotion, cultivating more presence, being aware of your stories and relationship and how that affects your dynamic. So yeah, I'll put a link below and you can dive into those episodes and get some inspiration and yeah, learn more about the kind of work that I do with couples through that.
Beautiful. Thank you, Luna. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, not only from like a perspective as a teacher and as a coach, but really from your own perspective and how you're bringing all these teachings into the way how you're relating and helping yourself in breaking out of your trauma patterns, as you said. So thank you for that. Thank you everybody for listening.